In the previous lecture, we pushed all of the code that we already had locally on a Git repository, of course, the one that we created directly from Visual Studio. So it is now available here on GitHub. And I showed you how we can also access all of the branches that we created, and of course, all of the commits that we have made throughout the history of this repository. Now, the reason why everything is on GitHub is twofold, as I think I've already mentioned. One, it will allow us to work in this same repository from different computers. And this also means that different people could work in this same repository, in collaboration as a team. And second, it is going to help us eventually be able to easily implement CI and CD. And we're going to see exactly how this works through GitHub in this lecture. So the very first thing that I want to show you is how from the Settings tab, now that we have some code inside, we see another option, a Branches option. And this one is going to be another very important section here on GitHub. And the reason is because of this Branch Protection Rules option. Remember when I told you that the master branch should always have a working version of our application? Well, it is through here, through branch protection rules that you can enforce that rule inside of your repository. And what that means is simply that a group of people or a single person inside of a team can be in charge of making sure that whatever gets committed or merged into the master branch or any other branch for that matter is actually working. So here on the branch protection rules, I am going to add a new rule. Right before I start working as a team, and we're also going to be doing that in this lecture, I am going to be protecting the master branch. And so here in the branch name pattern, I am going to set master. And this is not the exact name of a branch, but this can also be a pattern. Maybe you have many different branches, but all of them end with dash feature or something like that. Then all of the branches that contain this in their name are going to be protected by this rule. In this scenario, I am only going to be protecting master. And because my two other branches are named entirely different than master, have nothing to do with master, they are called dev and test, those are not going to be protected. But now let's take a look at the rule settings. In here, I can set a lot of rules that will protect this master branch. And the two options that you would use a lot in a CI/CD environment are the first two. The one that we're going to be setting right now is require pull request reviews before merging. This essentially means that, like I mentioned, someone has to review any merging to the master branch before it actually merges into the master branch, which would eventually trigger all kinds of CI/CD flows. So for example, in a team of 3, maybe all of them can make pull requests to the master branch, but it always requires a certain amount of approving reviews. In my case, since I am going to be working on a team of 2, or rather I am going to be simulating a team of 2 because I am just one person, but in here I'm just going to be setting 1. 1 review is more than enough. Of course, you could change that to even 6 reviews required for a pull request to be approved. Like I mentioned, this other option that requires status checks to pass before merging is also going to be quite important. Now for this, we have to configure some other things that we are not yet going to be configuring. That is for later on in this course. For now, I'm just going to set this single option. If I click on create, my master branch is already going to be protected by that rule. It wouldn't be possible for anyone in the team to just push all of the code to master because this rule is now in place. And don't worry if you don't understand fully what this protection means. We're going to take a look at that through the rest of this section. For now, what I want to show you is the Collaborators tab. In here, we can now add new people that can collaborate directly to this repository. Here is where you would add the rest of your team. So let's say that there is another person in my team that I want to have access to this repository so they can work alongside me in creating this test application. In here, I will have to type their username, full name, or email address, find them in this list. This happens to be the username that I created for a different GitHub account that is also mine, and I will just add the collaborator. As soon as that invite is sent, in my email account for this user ID, I will receive that invitation, and then I'll have access to that repository. So let's take a look at how that is going to happen. And for that, I am going to have here on Chrome my original GitHub account, and over here on Safari my other GitHub account. Now, before accessing through GitHub, I will have to go ahead and check my emails. And in here we can indeed find that email address that I was invited to that particular repository. I can simply view the invitation, and since I'm already logged into my GitHub account, I will see this message where I can accept the invitation. Immediately I am navigated to the repository and I can close these other tabs. You can see how it is the exact same repository. It has the same code, the same branches, the same commits. So now more than one person has access to the exact same repository, all of the code and all of the history. And I can do pretty much everything that the owner can do with this repository. Of course, there are going to be some limitations because I am not the owner, but I can download this code into my computer and set this as the remote, just as we did in the previous lectures, push over to this remote so the changes are displayed in here with different commits. We can create branches, everything that we've already seen throughout this lecture, I can do with my secondary GitHub account. Now, I am not going to be downloading this because I already have it. It would be a little bit difficult to have two versions of the same repo in the same computer. It can be a little bit nasty, but to simulate the fact that I, from the other account, going to be working on the same code, I am going to be making changes directly from GitHub. Because in case you didn't know, you can of course change the code directly from here. Let's say that, for example, I come to some test and I navigate over to the main page.saml and I want to change what the button reads in the text. I can simply come over here to the top right to this little pencil icon to edit the file and simply change whatever is being written here in the text. A simple change. Maybe I don't need the IDE for this. So now the button is going to read click me, a tiny small change. And once this is ready, I can go down and commit these changes. Of course, this is not terminal, but I have all of the things that I know are required when committing the change. I can add the message as we would normally do. I can even add an extended description. I am not going to do that right now. Of course, as soon as I commit these changes, they are also, before being committed, going to be staged, as we know happens when we execute git add. And in fact, GitHub in here can allow us to commit directly to the dev branch, or even create a new branch for this commit and start a pull request. Now, we haven't covered pull requests yet. We're going to do so in the next lecture. So for now, I am going to be committing directly to the dev branch. I will commit the change then, and I can see that I'm navigated back to the code. And if I navigate over to the commits, I can see that new commit that was created by a second account. Notice that all of these were created by me with my original GitHub account, and this one was created by someone else. Still me, but with another GitHub account. And we can of course see all of this from the original GitHub account. If I navigate back to code, I now see those 6 commits, and I see that indeed the last commit was made by someone else, not this original account. So this is how we can collaborate through GitHub as a team. We have checked a couple of important things. We have protected the master branch, and we can now access this code from a different GitHub account. In the next lecture, we're going to take a look at pull requests, or how is it that from another account, or any account for that matter, we can create those pull requests that eventually, because of the protection that we added in this lecture, are going to require some reviews so they can be approved. So in the next lecture, we're going to cover pull requests.